the Kershaw County themselves. I can appreciate it. Thank you very much. I am Derek Stanley. I am the public participation coordinator with the Bureau of Water within the South Carolina Department of Environmental Services. If you look at me strange, it's the agency formerly known as DK. In case you're wondering, we're now the Department of Environmental Services. But thank you for coming to this public meeting regarding Sunny Hill community as well as the dam. We have several people from the Department of Environmental Services with me, and I'm going to first have John. I think you already met John came. I'm having him introduce himself.
Hey there, everyone. Okay. Hey, I'm John McCain. I am the manager of the dam safety section of the Department of Environmental Services, as Derek mentioned. I, tried to organize this meeting, and I'm really blown away by the attendance. This is way better than we expected. So that's great. That's great. That's a good sign that this will be a productive meeting, and we'll have a very positive outcome. But again, I've been with DES, well, DHEC, now DES, for about 20 years, and I've been in the dams program for about 8 years. So that's me. I'm an engineer by training, and who's next?
Good evening. My name is Chris Whitehead. I'm counsel for the SCDES Dam Safety Program.
I'm Jared Woodard. I am the Regional Engineering Associate for the entire PD region. So I am the inspector for a lot of the dams throughout the state. So.
And I'm Katarina Gates. I work at the Dam Safety Program as well as an environmental health manager.
I'm Sam Johnson, also with the Dam Safety Program, also an environmental health manager.
Do we have anyone else here from Kershaw County Council or any DOT representative, any legislators?
Sadly, no.
Okay. Want to make sure they were included and did some introduction as well. So now we're going to turn over to John McCain. He's going to give us some background on Sunny Hill Pond Dam.
We've already covered this. Put it right on through. Again, unfortunately, no public officials or DOT employees are here tonight. They were invited. I'll just get that out there. So we're here to discuss the Upper Sunny Hill Pond Dam. I'm sure most of you, all of you probably know where this is. It's in the Sunny Hill community, which was developed in the, I guess, mid to late 60s from best I can tell. About 3 miles north of Camden. And what you're seeing on this map, the light blue area is the watershed, and that is the area when it rains, that's the area that feeds into the Sunny Hill, Upper Sunny Hill and Lower Sunny Hill ponds. And then the dark blue, which you can barely see, is kind of the results of our model for if the dam were to fail, where that water would go. So it, eventually it would first flow into the Lower Sunny Hill pond. And then after that, it would flow and cross over Sunny Hill Drive. And then I think it's Old Knight Parkway. Knightsville Road, that's it, sorry. And then ultimately to the Water River. And here's just a bit of a larger zoom in on that watershed. You can see the yellow being Sunny Hill Drive, passes over the dam itself, and in the watershed, which is, I've got the size of it on another slide. But so again, the name of the dam is Upper Sunny Hill Pond Dam. It's got some other names. Sunny Hill Upper Pond Dam. Also, it was in our old records in our file, Sunny Hill #1 dam. It's got some identification numbers. One is the state identification number, one is the federal identification number. The year constructed according to the Army Corps of Engineers is 1964. I think it was a few years after that. The year it became a regulated dam was 1979. That was the year all dams became regulated. We didn't have a program and regulations until 1978. So Sunny Hill Dam was one of the first regulated dams in the state among several thousand others. But it has been a dam we regulate since the very beginning of our program. Our records show it was designed by Shetty Tedderton, a registered land surveyor. Because this was built in the 60s, it was before there was a dam safety program, before there was a dams law in South Carolina. So there were no building standards, design standards. It didn't require an engineer to design or build it. So Mr. Tedderton was the designer and had it built. Our regulations have it. We have a structure for assigning hazard classifications of dams in South Carolina. We have a low hazard classification, a significant hazard classification, and then the highest is high hazard classification. This is a high hazard dam. The reason it's considered a high hazard dam is in the event of failure, the dam would potentially inundate homes on Leonard Circle and over top potentially two roads, Sunny Hill Drive and Knightsville Road. The dam height is approximately 15 feet. And this is again from the Army Corps of Engineers. The dam length is almost 500 feet. The crest, or the top of the dam, the crest is about 46 feet wide. This dam has the ability to store approximately 174 acre feet. Acre foot is a measure of volume. If you imagine 1 acre of land with one foot of water on it, that's 1 acre foot. So 174 acre feet is a measure of volume. That's the most the dam can hold back before it would start to spill over. Again, that watershed that I showed you earlier in the light blue is about 0.18 square miles or 115 acres. The stream that's impounded is just a stream named tributary to the Wateree Road. The road on the dam is Sunny Hill Drive, and that is a state-maintained secondary route, S560. This dam was last inspected by the department on July 8th, and it was given a poor inspection rating. So again, as far as when that dam was built, I've got an aerial photo here from 1964, just showing trees and fields, not really, no dam, no neighborhood under construction. This next photo, 1969, there's clearly a dam, ponds, and the neighborhood. So the dam, the construction was somewhere between 64 and 69. So that brings us to again, when our program was started in the late 70s, the first law first dam safety law was passed in 1978. Regulations followed in 1979, and with that, a dam safety program was begun in 1979. And actually, just as a little bit of a history lesson, even before that, in 1976, at the federal level, there was a law that was passed by President Carter. Sponsor, he was very adamant that the Army Corps of Engineers go out and do a national inventory of dams in the U.S. and inspect those dams. And so what you're seeing here is from 1979, but it was initiated at the federal level by President Carter in 76. But this was part of that initial inventory and inspection of high hazard dams in the country. So the very first time this dam was inspected, it was by the Army Corps of Engineers in August of 1979. And we still have this report in our files. And just some quick kind of brief summaries that the Army Corps of Engineers at that time said that the dam is classified as a small size and a high hazard potential. The size classification is based on the height of the dam and the storage capacity of the reservoir. The hazard potential has been defined as high because several structures that are located on waterfront lots around Sunny Hill Pond number 2, directly downstream, appear to be in areas susceptible to flooding. Some more findings from this report. The dam's outlet works, which is how water passes safely through the dam. The outlet works consist of a drop inlet fabricated from 1/2 of a corrugated metal pipe, a flat metal plate connected to a 36-inch diameter CMP, which is a corrugated metal pipe, outlet conduit, which extends through the dam embankment. It has no spillway. What they mean when they say it has no spillway, it has no emergency spillway. It has a primary spillway. That's what it's talking about. The outlet works. The drop inlet pipe is a primary spillway. This dam has no other spillways. And then they also found that since the preliminary hydrology study suggests the existing dam discharge capacity is not adequate to handle the SDF, the dam is considered unsafe. SDF is essentially the regulatory required spillway capacity. How much flow does your spillway have to be able to pass? And so, even from the very first day, there was this dam, was considered to not have sufficient spillway capacity. This is a sketch of the dam from that Army Corps of Engineers report. You can see it's circled in kind of the pink color is that drop inlet spillway. You can kind of see the detail of it. It shows it's about 4.3 feet across the front, the entrance, and about 2.3 feet deep. So basically about a 4.3 diameter pipe was cut in half to make this a drop inlet. And the upper, you can see the road, Sunny Hill Drive, running right through the middle. Above that is the upper pond, and below it is the lower pond. And just to kind of give you an idea of what we consider to be the dam, this kind of shows what it would be roughly be the outline of the dam. And then the spillway and that corrugated metal pipe that's also considered part of the dam. It's a functional pertinent structure. So when we say something is a dam, that includes all the spillways and everything else that go with that. Here's a look at it in cross section. You can see the drop inlet on the left. You can see the 36-inch corrugated metal pipe that goes through the dam. And then you can see the dam itself. And then you can see, the crest of the dam I mentioned earlier was 46 feet. So the Army Corps shows, from the center line to 1/2 of the dam is 23. So the total width of the dam is 46. So that gives you a little bit of an idea of what the dimensions of the dam and what we consider to be the dam. So after that first inspection, this is where things get a little messy, a little hard. It's a lot of letters, a lot of legal proceedings, a lot of there's a lot that goes on between 1979 and 2001, and we don't have time to go into details tonight. But I will say it kind of culminated, there was a lot of people saying, no, I don't own the dam, you own the dam. A lot of finger pointing, a lot of denial of responsibility for the dam. So it was up to our predecessor agency to try to figure out who is the owner, who is responsible, who needs to fix the dam. And so that's essentially what this, the 22 years gap, it boils down to. But then in 2001, all the parties were able to reach a settlement agreement, which essentially is everyone's agreeing that this is, we're all on the same page, we're all agreeing to this, and it was signed by a judge. So that is what's binding today on this situation. So there's really not a point in going laboring or belaboring all this history, since that settlement agreement signed by a judge is what still is in effect today. And so that's what the settlement agreement looks like. It's a 3-page document. It's in the handouts. It's also, we have copies of it over here. And if anyone isn't able to obtain a copy tonight, we will provide via email anything you need. But there are 26 signatories or parties, I guess, not signatories. I shouldn't use that word, but it's parties to the settlement. 26 parties. And you can see those there. And it also includes a provision regarding, with that little asterisk, that the spouses, children, heirs, and any person that's claiming any right, title, estate, interest in, or lien upon lots bordering Sunny Hill Pond, aka Upper Sunny Hill Pond, are also will be party to the settlement. This is the page, the second and third pages. It's not a long document, but I think the red highlighted areas are what are most relevant here. The parties submitted a verbal settlement to the court after questioning all parties, either in their individual capacity or through counsel. I conclude that the proposal is fair and equitable and will resolve the dispute among them. Therefore, with the consent of the parties, it is hereby ordered that. Then we'll jump down to number 2. That's more relevant to the present. The homeowners having lots on the Upper Sunny Hill Pond will establish a homeowners association in corporate form, issuing such shares and having such bylaws as may be agreeable to them, which will notify the Department of Health and Environmental Control of its acceptance of the responsibility for receiving and responding to DHEC's inspection reports, maintaining the dam, and establishing and maintaining an emergency notification plan. A plan for establishing this association will be provided to all parties within 14 days of the date of this order. And then number 3, once formed, the Upper Sunny Hill Pond Homeowners Association will assume control of the dam. Defendants West, Tedderton, and Ford will deliver quitclaim deeds transferring whatever ownership interest they have in the dam to the homeowners association. Signed by Judge Barber. And this is dated January 31st, 2001. And so not long after that, same year, the HOA, Homeowners Association, was created. These are the articles of incorporation. It mentions there are 25 shares to this corporation. And it says that the shares are owned by the lot owners, whose lots fronts on the Upper Sunny Hill Pond, in Sunny Hill subdivision. Each lakefront lot is entitled to 1 share, and the share of stock must be transferred with the ownership of the lot and may not be transferred to any other persons who is not a lot owner, which lot fronts on said pond. And I think that's pretty much the most relevant parts of that document. And then if we look at kind of what the ownership of these lots look like today, we have kind of three main categories. We have those that were not, really, the red dots were not parties to the settlement. So, then we have green, those lots are owned today by the parties that were part of that settlement back in 2001. And then the blue dots are the lots that have been sold and are under different ownership than when that settlement was issued. So the settlement mentioned quitclaim deeds, that was basically the, Mr. Tenderton, Mr. West, and Mrs. Bishop, they basically, deeding their interest in the property, in the dam to the homeowners association. So that was back in 2001. All of that was in 2001. There was a homeowners association at that time. All right, and then.
Oh, no.
Sorry, folks, just.
Apologies.
Quitclaim deed, like I said, 2001.
Sorry.
All right.
Yes. Okay. Are you kidding me?
There we go, sorry. 2001, HOAs formed, the quitclaim deeds have been issued, the settlement's being abided by. Then jump forward 12 years, 2013.
I see.
I may be pushing it, sorry. All right, so the homeowners association was dissolved in August of 2013. It's the Secretary of State basically saying, therefore, under the authority of the South Carolina Code of Laws, the above named corporation is administratively dissolved as of the title or the date of the certificate of dissolution. So it's essentially for not complying with state law or what's required for corporations. It was essentially administratively dissolved. So the Secretary of State's office said this corporation doesn't exist because it's not doing what it's supposed to. So, that kind of, and after that, I don't know if there's been any HOA activity. I don't know. That's maybe something we can hear from the audience later on, but that's kind of the end of the HOA as far as I'm aware. All right, and then 2014, you can see this is a letter addressed to DHEC. We are inspecting the dam this whole time. So DHEC is inspecting the dam. We are sending inspection reports to who we believe is the appropriate officials with the homeowners association. But then come 2014, we get this back from the registered agent for the homeowners, the corporation. It was an incorporated homeowners association. Basically saying that he is no longer associated with the association. He's not the appropriate party to be notified of the inspection report. And that each of the lot holders who surround the lake are stockholders in the corporation. Next slide. All right, so that's kind of brings us to the present. Kind of, gives you kind of an update on how we got here, how the HOA was created, and the fact that it appears the HOA, under the terms of that settlement, must exist, has to continue to exist. And the owners of that corporation are the lot owners. So I'll let Jared Woodard now, he'll come up and he's our regional engineer who inspects the dam and give everyone an update on the condition of the dam.
So yeah, as John said, again, I'm Jared Woodard. I'm the regional engineering associate, again, for the PD region. So I cover from Kershaw County all the way to Lee County. But with our regulations, this is straight from the Dams and Safety Reservoir Act. Preliminary inspections of dams shall be performed by the department to identify those dams which require maintenance and or repair actions to reduce danger to human life or property. And again, that is straight from our regulations. As John mentioned earlier, Upper Sunny Hill Pond Dam is currently a Class 1 high hazard dam. And we conduct inspections on high hazard dams once every 2 years. Again, John mentioned the last inspection for this dam was July 8, 2024. This was due to following the formation of a sinkhole kind of on the crest upstream slope area on July 5th. So these are observations that I made during that preliminary inspection on July 8th. Again, deficiencies observed. So there are numerous sinkholes along the upstream slope and the shoulder of the crest, so right along that roadway, which are up to about 3.5 feet in depth. Specifically, that sinkhole is the one that is up to that depth. But there are other ones kind of right along the tree line with some exposed root structures. And then additionally, numerous decaying tree stumps and voids around those tree stumps on the upstream and downstream slopes. The bottom picture indicates one of those tree stumps. It's a little hard to see with that brush vegetation, but that survey rod is about 2 feet into the embankment along the downstream slope. Additional observations that were made. There's an area of scarping or erosion kind of right along the downstream slope and crest area. There's a vertical section. It's been that way for numerous years, but the picture at the top is an indication of that scarping. And it could just be an indication of potential slope instability. And then additionally, there's just dense vegetation along the entirety of the downstream slope. I don't know about you, but walking through that is no walk in the park, I guess. So it inhibits the ability to be able to see all of the potential concerns that are going on. Along with the inspection of these photos, I submitted an inspection report. Along with that report, I include requirements and recommendations based on the observed deficiencies. So these are activities that require a permit to be submitted, or a permit application to be submitted to the department. And once that application is approved, the permitted work can begin. So this first one, first requirement is that a licensed professional engineer needs to engage to evaluate the condition and stability of the entire embankment, especially around those observed voids and sinkholes in the upstream slope of the crest, as well as the downstream slope. Following the evaluation, the professional engineer should develop a permit application for repairs of those voids and stabilization of the upstream and downstream slopes and the crest. The next requirement, due to concerns of internal erosion around the newly formed sinkhole, so there's the potential that, there's obviously erosion that we can see on top of the embankment, but there could be erosion that is occurring within the embankment itself. So again, a licensed engineer needs to be engaged to conduct a full investigation of the voids and potential internal erosion. within the dam. And the final requirement here is the licensed engineers needs to develop a permit application for repairs and stabilization of the downstream slope, especially around that scarped or eroded section. Additional requirements, these are maintenance requirements. These are things that do not require a permit through the department. These are things that are able to be done, maybe if you have a decent number of people out on the weekend, things that can be done with hand tools. The primary one is removal of brush vegetation, really to allow for full observation of the dam. Anything less than 4 inches in diameter is what that maintenance would be targeted for. And then following removal of, all that vegetation, obviously the slope would then be exposed. So the development of either grass coverage or some other form of erosion protection, that could be riprap blocks, those big kind of granite blocks. Those could be used to help prevent further erosion. And finally, a potential recommendation, as John mentioned, the primary spillway for the dam is a corrugated metal pipe that was installed again somewhere around 1964 to 1969. The lifespan of those corrugated metal pipes typically runs from about 50 to 60 years. So, we have reached that point. And so I recommend that a camera investigation be done of that spillway pipe to help look for potential deterioration of that pipe. You might even see a little bit of embankment material within the pipe. So a camera investigation would be a good step to determine whether or not that pipe needs to be replaced.
Well, Jared will have plenty of time for question and answers after we finish with the main part of our presentation. Thank you, Jared. So, now that you've kind of heard why we're here, that the settlement agreement still exists, still is binding. An issue with the dam that need to be addressed. What potential solutions do we have? What are we looking at? What are the options we can take? Well, before any solution, we're going to have a responsible dam owner. So, that's the fact of the matter. And, I think a lot of these documents speak for themselves. But we have to have a responsible dam owner for this situation to improve. So obviously, the dam can be repaired. That's probably the most obvious solution. Let's fix what's wrong with the dam. So what needs to be done? As Jared mentioned, a licensed engineer needs to be involved. It has to be involved. That's a requirement of state law and regulations for any regulated dam. If you're gonna do work, if it's work that requires a permit, that a licensed engineer has to be the one who develops that permit application. As Jared mentioned, maintenance, you don't need an engineer. You can cut the brush, you can get grass cover established. That's not something that requires an engineer. When you start digging into that dam, when you do anything that affects the dam's spillway capacity, raise the height of the dam, lower anything that affects the structural or hydraulic behavior of the dam, you've got to get an engineer involved. So when you're looking for an engineer, hydrology, they need to be experienced in hydrology, and that is essentially under science and understanding of how a watershed behaves during a rainfall event, how much runoff the rain event generates, how long that runoff takes to reach your lake, what is the peak amount of that runoff, and when does it arrive? And there are a lot of other considerations, but that's one of the three main aspects of an engineer who is a dam, who designs dams, who is experienced with dams, has to know hydrology. Then that engineer also needs to know hydraulics. So once all that water reaches your lake, how does the dam and the spillway, how does it move through the dam? How do we make sure the dam doesn't overtop? How do we, make sure that that the dam, that there's not going to be erosion, or that if there is erosion, it's only in the most extreme events, and that we can get back and there's, it can be repaired. We don't want to have erosion on a freak every time we get a rainstorm. We don't want to see the dam eroding. So this is all kind of what the hydraulic design of the dam deals with. So how the dam spillway system conveys the inflows from the watershed. Does the dam overtop? How much additional spillway capacity is needed? How to deliver that additional spillway capacity? And then lastly is geotechnical engineering or soils engineering, basically understanding, because this being an earthen embankment dam, that, there's no concrete holding that water back. It's a big pile of earth. And so that's the science of geotechnical engineering, I guess. So that's understanding the types of soils that make up the dam. Are the soils compacted well? Are they stable? Do the soils inhibit seepage through the dam? Are there any internal erosion pathways within the dam? What is causing those sinkholes? Is it internal erosion? Is it just settlement? What's going on? Will the dam be able to withstand an earthquake? Those are all what the geotechnical engineer looks at. And so again, hydrology, that's the watershed. That's rainfall, how it moves over the land, and how it timing, how much of it, when does it reach your lake, your pond? And there's the hydraulics, that's how it moves through the spillways. And then there's geotechnical engineering. So, we try to advise all dam owners. We don't tell you who to hire when you are looking for an engineer, but you need someone, or maybe it's not one engineer, maybe it's a firm. They need to be qualified in all of these three areas. So repair, as Jared mentioned, the inspection of July 18th. That inspection says we need to see a permit application by October 17th. The dam does not have an approved emergency action plan. We can help you make one. We help with, that's a service we offer. We will essentially do 90% of the emergency action plan. We'll get you almost to the finish line, but we always need the dam owner to take it that last 10%. The spillway pipe is the original pipe. It's from the 60s. It's corrugated metal pipe. Typical life is 50, maybe 60 or 70, if you're lucky. But that pipe is at the end of its life. So what is its condition? The inspection report recommends a video inspection of the entire link. All right, so that's repair. That would mean get an engineer, get a permit application, and figure out what's wrong with the dam, and let's figure out how to fix it. There's always another option. It's remove the dam. It's not, what does that look like? So also removal of a dam requires a permit. That means you got to get an engineer involved. But so the dam safety, if the dam is removed, that means the dam safety program would no longer consider there to be a regulated dam at that location. There would be no liability and responsibility for owning a dam in the eyes of state laws and regulations. So again, I'll show you what it looks like. Here's one dam being removed right now. This is a dam in Marlborough County, and the dam, the DOT is building a bridge where there used to be a dam. So that creek is just flowing naturally where it used to flow, and the DOT is building a bridge. So there won't be a lake, there will just be a creek, the natural stream that is being restored. Here's another option. This is not in South Carolina. I'm not sure where this is, but this is an arch culvert being put in where there used to be a dam. So again, we're returning that stream to its natural channel, but you still have your road. You can still cross that stream. You still, can get to get to where you need to go. So this is what removal of a dam could look like in your neighborhood, just as an option. And then there's always another, you can always, if you don't wanna deal with the dam safety program anymore, you don't want it to be regulated, you don't want an inspector coming out and telling you what's wrong with the dam. You're always looking at making it smaller, making it smaller, but potentially it would fall under the threshold for regulation. Which is 25 feet in height or 50 acre feet in storage volume. The exception is any dam that could cause loss of life is regulated. So it may not be an option, but it's something that can be looked at. So a licensed engineer would probably need to evaluate that as well. But that would be an option where maybe a small pond remains, but it would fall out of regulation. So, you don't have people like me, sending you stuff in the mail anymore. So that's kind of where what we wanted to convey to everyone. I think we're doing pretty good on time. So I'll ask Derek I think Derek is going to be our facilitator. So we'll take as many questions as we can and just ask everyone to be courteous and don't interrupt their other members of the community.
Whoever's.
All right, looking at what you displayed for 1979 and the Corps of Engineers, it does not look like there were any trees on the north slope of the dam. At that time, there was an indication in the slide about there being trees on the lower pond part of the dam, but no trees indicated in that slide on the upper part. And if the dam has been subjected to inspections since 1979, why are there trees there? And also, while we're at it, the trees that are there are either totally within the right of way of DOT or growing right on the edge, because they have a 50-foot right of way measured from the center line, and 25 feet from the center line encompasses all of those trees except for maybe one, which is a really big one. And it does definitely encompass. And oh, by the way, they also sent out a crew last year and ravaged the north side of the pond with their vertical equipment. And I think they killed one of the trees in the process. So why aren't they here and why can't you make them be here? Because they're party to this too. That section 1 that you skipped over, I think that still applies. The court settlement said they were responsible for removal of the trees along their right of way. It didn't say only once, and they didn't do it anyway. So a lot of questions about DOT's responsibility for the mess that we're in.
So let me just address the question about why there were trees on the dam, during its pretty much entire history. So it's, trees are not good for a dam. There's no denying that. Especially when they die, that's when they really become a problem, because when the tree dies and the roots die, you have, the roots begin to rot, decompose. You have voids that develop. You have potential pathways through the dam where the roots used to be. So, and then anytime there's a tree, that tree could be blown over in a storm. That's not a good thing on a dam either. So, I think we've always, to my knowledge, told people, trees shouldn't be on dams. But I will say we have not been, for the history of the program, we have not been, we have focused on tried to focus on other things such as spillways, the condition of the earth, the embankment itself, things that generally are more likely and more, you know, lead to dam failure. Trees are not a good thing, but, you know, I definitely, if I was to prioritize the things that I needed to fix on my dam, trees would not be top priority, but they still should not be on the dam. I mean, you know, I think if you look in the settlement agreement, there were trees were removed, as part of that settlement agreement. Trees are back, trees have grown up again. So. Well,
The picture from 2011 shows those trees are still there 10 years after the agreement.
well, I think some trees were removed. I can't speak to how, I think the settlement maybe mentioned remove trees within the right of way, but I do know, you know, I think I'm pretty confident that we have been consistent that trees don't belong on the dam. We have just not been as forceful in the, you know, enforcing that, as we have tried to be on other things that are likely, you know, more of a priority. But as far as why DOT's not here, as far as their, you know, part one of the settlement agreement, I'll let my attorney talk about that.
It's a very good question, sir. And you're going to be disappointed with my answer. We can't speak for the Department of Transportation. So I understand your concern. Clearly, you've looked at the settlement prior to this meeting. That might be a discussion for the community in general. Again, sorry to disappoint.
Another question?
Obviously, this is going to be a long, drawn out process, determining who's responsible. Take quite a long time. My question is there a level of the water that we could drop it down while we're trying to resolve this where you can hook that thing?
Okay, so, the decision to close the road, that's not my decision, again, that's DOT, it's a state road. I do think a dam in this condition should be kept at the water level should be kept low or drained, until it's fixed. I think that would be the prudent thing to do. I don't know how much control that spillway even gives to, I don't know how low it can be, how low you can get the water level, but I don't know whether it's DOT that's keeping the road closed, whether it's through the county emergency management division. I can't answer that question. So what would make the county or the DOT comfortable with reopening the road? You know, that's, if it's water level, then yeah, I think the water level should be dropped. If it's the potential for voids under that roadway, which I think is what we don't know, I don't see the road being reopened anytime soon until that's investigated. More than likely, there's a concern that there are voids under the roadway, that, you know, that would be my guess. So I think that investigating that, getting an engineer involved would be the quickest way potentially to get the road reopened. But also to, you know, get this dam on a path for one of those solutions we talked about.
So you look at the road?
Yes.
You have, so you've seen that it's hollowed under the road.
Yeah, that one big sinkhole is just coming under the under the pavement to a degree. Yeah.
Yeah. So, to answer him, it is dangerous. It is.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think it would be reopened, now, so,
It's washed out.
yeah, I think, yeah, there's a safety concern, sure. Again, I'm not making the decision to keep it closed, but I think it's probably the right decision, until more is known about the condition of, you know, what's under that pavement.
I don't know. We know there's something wrong with the dam. Why hasn't the camera been run underneath it to fix to see the whole thing and check the internal structures. We know there's something wrong with the dam. Why hasn't the full assessment been done so we know what to do, what the next step would be, whether it's DOT, whether it's us, have a bigger picture. That's my question. Why hasn't everything taken place? Why do we have to wait to see it? And why do we have to wait to check the internal structure, internal process?
Well, that's not something my agency does. We inspect the dam, we look at it.
But that's, in that part of inspecting the dam, I mean, I wouldn't think that would be inspecting the dam, you check the whole dam, the internals, make sure everything's flowing right, hydraulics, everything. Why isn't a camera running? I mean.
We don't have a camera, sir.
Oh.
And we have over 2,000 dams in the state. We inspect, we take a look, we do a visual inspection, and when we see things that are concerning, we let the dam owner know. And it's the dam owner's responsibility to get a camera in their pipe or to get their camera.
I'm just wondering, or Department of Environmental Services, they're inspecting dams, it's just, so you're not even have government national would give you the equipment to inspect dams.
No.
Okay.
Okay, so in this time right now, until we determine this, is the road's gonna remain closed? Until-
It's likely, yes.
So we're just stuck one way in and one way out.
Again, I mean, I don't know what DOT or whether it's the county, or I don't know who is ultimately makes that call, but, I mean, yes, that sinkhole is right at the edge of the pavement. It's not safe right now. So, I mean, the easement is the State Department of Transportation. But that easement, is basically for a road, the surface of the road, the asphalt. It doesn't mean that DOT physically owns the soil, the earth beneath it. It's an easement for a roadway. Now, that settlement agreement is separate from any easements. That settlement agreement does specify DOT has agreed to do X, Y, and Z. So that's a little different. So I mean, that's something, again, we can't tell you what to do with that, but it's still binding, it's still in effect, so.
I just happened to follow, South Carolina Department of Transportation into the neighborhood, when they closed the road. And I spoke to the person from DOT and was informed that they are responsible for the roadway, but they're not responsible for the dam. And we can all be upset with the road closure. It's an inconvenience for all of us, but my understanding of this situation is that the next step is to hire the engineers, as these folks have said, and figure out the solution. The question is, who pays for that? And, I think that's just where we are. And I don't know, my questions are, how much legal responsibility, and by the way, thank you all for doing this, because at least we have information. But my question is, how much responsibility does South Carolina Department of Transportation have? Because the trees were allowed to grow up, they were supposed to help maintain that. And then how do we as a community want to proceed in addressing a solution to the problem? What you're saying, if I'm correct in understanding, is it's the homeowners on the dam on the north pump, is that correct? According to the 2001?
That, I think if you read the documents, those are the lots that would then result in shares of the corporation. But also the lower homeowners association is also an owner, because that downstream part of the dam is on the lot, the parcel owned by that lower association. So there's also an additional owner in that lower, whatever their corporation is.
Their lower fund as well. Another question that's concerning me is, God forbid, we have a significant rain event, if I'm correct in understanding you, and I only ask this because I live on the Leonard Circle side of the neighborhood, the roadway is, the dam is closed. If we have a significant event and enough water, say that dam is dangerous, as you say, Washington doesn't withhold enough water, it ends up flooding across Sunny Hill Drive on the back end, then I cannot get in and out of my neighborhood. I'm waterlogged at that point. So. Yeah, so I don't know, I am more of a, this is where we are, how do we want to move forward, how do we want to solve it? And then trying to figure out how much responsibility DOT has in it, how much responsibility does the neighborhood have in it? My understanding is something similar happened like this over in Forest Acres. And I have a very top level understanding of how that was solved, but I do think that there was some sort of governmental involvement where they came in and fixed it and paid for it. And the people that were affected in that community then were levied a tax over a period of time, an additional tax to, I guess, reimburse.
I do know.
Do you know
I know a
anything
little bit
about
about
that?
that, so I can add a little bit of insight if you'd like.
Are you interested?
Yes.
Okay, yes, we're interested.
Okay, so let's see, so let me address that first. So in 2015, I think everyone probably knows, the entire state got flooded. It was a massive amount of rain, but in Columbia especially, several dams in Forest Acres breached. And so at that time, and they were owned by homeowners associations. And it's, there are a lot of dams around the state owned by homeowners associations. Well, what at least I believe three of the homeowners associations were able to do was to go to the county and went through the county, set up a special tax district. That special tax district was solely for the residents of that homeowners association. And the county would through the county property taxes, and there'd be an additional tax that would go to pay for the repair of the dams, the rebuilding of those dams. And the money to repair the dams was through a loan. The HOA took out a loan from the Small Business Administration. And then that special tax district was the revenue source that was able to repay that 30, 40-year loan. So that's an option. We actually even have back in 2017, I believe we did we had a couple attorneys, we had several folks do it. We did a recording of this meeting, this presentation on how to set up a special tax district. How an HOA through its covenants and bylaws, can kind of be a better dam owner, can kind of help itself out as far as who takes care of the dam. So we have some good resources on our website for homeowners associations. So
There's no association.
There is no homeowners association.
It can be researched. There are covenants, I believe, Sam, there were covenants and bylaws it was only dissolved in the eyes of the Secretary of State. That could be rectified. So the HOA could be reformed, the corporation could be reestablished. But the ownership is tied to the lots, the deeds to the lots. So I think that's pretty clear in these documents. I think I need to correct one thing I said earlier, about the DOT easement. I've not seen the easement for that section of Sunny Hill Drive. But there are highway commission, we do have a highway commission minutes from 1967 where that road was brought into the state system.
You have this?
Yes.
You know, at the time of the settlement, I don't think the notes, the minutes were available to the court. There's a plat that's been recorded, no words. You say, do you actually have the words that describe?
We have
Right away.
minutes from we have the commission meeting, and it said that the commission voted to bring Sunny Hill Drive in as a state road. I don't think I have a plat.
So you don't actually have the words that define the right of way, which is why the judge did not let DOT off the hook. Because they could not prove to the court, all we had that was recorded was a right of way, 2-foot right of way from standard from the center line, which extended basically, very close to the shoreline of the north side. And,
Well, it sounds like you probably know more than I do about
they
that.
couldn't prove that they were not responsible for the dam itself, so I got excited and said you had those minutes.
I'm sorry, I actually got confused with another dam, believe it or not, where there's a state road on the dam, but we don't have the easement. I apologize.
One thing, October 17th is awfully quick for us to do this stuff. If we can show progress towards trying to establish ownership, are we going to get an extension? Because
Well,
we're going to have
honestly,
to
I
deal
don't
with
think-
politicians too. And it's an
I don't
election.
think ownership is really needs to be established. I think
Well,
the homeowners association may need to be.
there are some people that are not buying what you're saying. Okay, just so you know. There's some people who have lots on the pond that are not in agreement that settlement is binding on them.
The October 17th date can definitely be extended. We would like to see an engineer at least involved. An engineer has potentially been retained, but yes, I realize October 17th is not long. It's not as coming soon.
Point blank, heard that the owners of the upper pond and the lower pond, and then I've also heard that owners of property within the entire subdivision are responsible for taking care of this. 42, who is responsible for solving this problem? Point blank, who's responsible?
Well, I don't think anyone has said the entire subdivision is responsible.
All right, do we?
I think the entire subdivision may want to know what's going on. That's why this was, made aware, that everyone was made aware.
Right, is it required that a homeowners association be formed? No.
All I can say is, DES, we will have to figure out
So you don't know the.
we will have to find a responsible party to fix this dam or to remove the dam. And I don't think anyone wants to go back to court is kind of, I think we would like to avoid that.
Okay, my next question is, who owns the upper pond?
The pond itself
Upper pond itself.
is kind of chopped up into multiple parcels.
Okay, if you go back to your slide, which you're showing all the dots.
Yes.
Okay, can we see that again?
So.
Okay, you show us the, upper pond as a green dot. So that means the current property owner was named in the 2001 settlement. But it does not show, if the majority of the pond is not specifically owned by any one person, then who is responsible for fixing it?
Well, let me just make a distinction. I'm only concerned about the dam. The pond, we don't regulate ponds. We only regulate the dam. And if you go back kind of to that slide where I had a little outline, that's the dam. Now, if there's any ownership by these people, by the folks on the lake, it's through that mention of, you know, that there being shareholders, and the shareholders are the owners of the dam. You know, again, it's not about ownership of the lake and the water, it's about who owns that the physical dam through those shares in the corporation, and through the, you know, each lot being equivalent to one share. That's.
Okay, have you had any discussion with DOT about the fact that the road that goes over the dam has been there since what we're talking about, 26? How does DOT, and I know, I'd like to know if you've had this, what is their responsibility of the damage that that road has caused to the dam? Just like a bridge wears out, what about a road wearing out the dam? Have you had any discussion with DOT about that?
We have any questions on our, the virtual audience, I believe, has some questions.
So we've got number. Thank you. So we have a number of questions, comments as well. I'm just going to run through this, and this is again from the presentation earlier. So first comment here, I think this was just providing some context during the first run through the presentation. Just noting that the lower pond does have the HOA, as we've discussed, that is deeded to those owners, but the upper pond, as we're discussing, does not have that at present. The next question we have in the chat is, what can the homeowners do to stop people from parking on the dam? There are people that park across the way to fish that don't live in the area, which is not good for the dam. If it is fixed and that issue isn't addressed, people parking and fishing, it could cause major problems again.
That's outside of my responsibility. Again, that's the dam owner's responsibility. You know, where people park, what access people have or don't have, you know, that's not anything I can help with. That again falls to the landowner, the dam owner, you know, to post signs, you know, no parking, fences, you know, barricades, whatever. That's beyond, that's up to the landowner and the property owner.
Okay, our next question, and we've been discussing this, Chris, at length. If it's a state road, why are they not also responsible for repairs as well?
Well, again, look to the settlement agreement, and then, you know, beyond that, you know, I think DOT is responsible for the condition of the pavement. And, you know, my DOT will not accept responsibility for what supports the pavement. But once there is a suitable base or subgrade for a road, then yes, DOT will make sure that has to maintain that asphalt, make sure that that roadway is functioning and safe. But you know, I think it falls to the dam owner for what supports that roadway, for the soils and, you know, the embankment that supports that roadway.
The next one, the question is, who is responsible for the costs? Presumably of the repairs or any of the work on the dam?
So yes, the engineers that represent a cost, and then the repairs represent a cost. So it's, you know, and I'm not gonna, you know, give you any false notion that it's not expensive. It is expensive. But again, there are mechanisms to kind of help to, you know, make it less painful, such as, you know, a special tax district and potentially financing over maybe even as much as 40 years. You know, to help defray or to help make it a little less painful, you know, to absorb those costs. But you know, there are trying to think anything else, you know. But, you know, again, like I said, you know, maybe it's not repairing the dam, maybe it's maybe removing the dam is a cheaper option. And, you know, you still have a road, but you don't, you know, but you have a stream instead of a pond. So there could be cheaper options.
So if you remove, if you make it really, really simple, let's pretend. None of us want the dam, let's pretend, I know there are ramifications for removing it, but just say we all as a neighborhood say, whether we own property on it or not, on the water, on the pond. So let's get rid of it, don't be a dam owner. No pun intended there, but we don't need the owner of the dam. So can we move forward and what would it take and how would we take care of that cost? Or would it be us or another party? I'm really simplifying it, but that would be a solution. Right.
Well, it would still cost. It would be a cost. Generally, it's cheaper to remove a dam than fix a dam, especially a dam that's in bad shape. This dam's in bad shape. So, you know, removing would probably be cheaper. I'm kind of hesitant to speak too much about other sources of funding, but there are more pots of funding for removal of dams than for fixing dams.
Building a bridge, think about it.
That is a question for DOT. But they have done that at other dams.
That what?
They have essentially paid for the removal of the dam and the building of a bridge. That's DOT, but it's happened in more than one occasion.
You can do the cost benefit if it's less expensive to remove it for safety's sake. Right. For safety's sake, it should be covered by someone else. Right.
There are, there are other, again, sources of funds when it's, I don't know if this would apply here, but if the dam is acting as a, where removal of the dam would have ecological benefits for fish, for endangered species, there are sources of funding for removal of dams in that type of scenario. We do have good contacts with some of those organizations that help facilitate those types of removals.
Yeah, we have a few more questions and comments. Next one's, just again, some comments, noting the upper pond does not have the HOA at present. And that most in the area do not have a deed to the pond. Also that, at least for the commenter, the upper pond did not have any shares, or they do not. Next question that we have, is what happens if no one takes action to take responsibility or form an HOA? And then when would that be done?
First question, I didn't quite really understand.
So first, not questions, some comments just kind of coming through in the discussion as to those in the upper pond, what information they have. Again, the question is, what happens if no one takes action to take responsibility or to form an HOA, and when would that be done?
I mean, we have a standardized enforcement process to deal with those situations, and the end game could be litigation. We go to court. That could be the end game. Sir?
Against
Who we identify as the dam owner. I mean, I think the documents speak for themselves. I think the documents and the settlement identified the dam.
And what do the red dots mean up there in Northgate?
So that, if you saw my slide from earlier, they had 26 names or 26 entities.
Yeah.
Those red dots were not one of those 26.
Okay, what does that mean in terms of effect of those houses on cost of the dam? I have no water behind my house. I don't own the property behind my fence line. Yet I'm getting information that I'm a dam owner. This seems to say,
I don't think
this seems to say.
let me make a distinction. We tried to inform the entire community of what's going on. We're not naming the entire community as dam owner. But if you do have a lot that was one of those that was an original party to that settlement, you probably are either a dam owner or you need to look at your deed and maybe talk to an attorney to see if that applies to you.
I looked at my deed, no mention of the dam at all.
Are you in a red dot?
I'm sorry,
Are you in a red dot lot?
I am a red dot lot.
I think that's something you need to get legal advice about.
So am I correct in understanding that you're saying the documents speak for themselves and according to the 2001 settlement, the individuals listed here outside of, well, so, yeah, all of the, except for DOT, are the owners. Is that correct? I mean.
Well, I think they are shareholders in the corporation.
And the corporation is the standard.
Yes, I think that's correct.
Even though the state dissolved it.
Let me briefly touch on the reason for the decision. Why it was dissolved was because paperwork from the homeowner association, that company was not filed with DOR. That's why it was administratively dissolved. It was not dissolved by act of the HOA or the corporation. It was because of lack of filing. That happens frequently. It's, if I were to guess, either somebody moved who was acting as the agent, and that address, because you can see in the form, it said, return sentence. That's what. So somehow the ball got dropped in leadership of that, entity that was the HOA. That's why.
I just want, and I know you're the attorney, so maybe you're the first to ask. I just want to make sure we're all clear and understanding that what you're saying is that these folks, and then with their spouses, children, heirs, any person claiming right titles, if anybody bought any of those properties of those shares in that LLC, are who would be considered the dam owners. I mean, if that's the question to be answered, I'm just trying to understand if I'm
Yeah,
understanding.
if you look at the settlement, which you have, and if you also look at the articles of incorporation, which also detail how those shares are supposed to, one, be divided, and two, transferred on sale.
Okay, and so if I bought a piece of property, is that what that means when it says persons claiming any right, title, estate, interest, or lien upon lots bordering Sunny Hill Pond? Is that what that means?
That's an apartment position, man.
All right.
That's an apartment position, man.
Okay, thank you. I'm just trying to
And
understand.
I want to differentiate that, obviously, I'm speaking on behalf of the Department
Of
of
course.
Services.
Yes,
And I believe, Mr. McCain's advice of, seeking counsel is, very important for everyone.
I'm just wondering if we need to seek counsel as a community. Or if, I mean, I'm really beginning to feel like this is important to more, and I also don't feel like, and this is my opinion, and you all may disagree, but this was done 60 years ago. Some of these people are dead,
Right.
that made this agreement. I really don't think it's fair for a handful of people to be held responsible when this situation affects everyone. And I'm not saying we all need to dig in our pockets today and pay for stuff, but I do feel like maybe as a community, we need to seek some legal representation to just get guidance. Everybody needs to get their own attorney. Okay. Especially the people on the pond.
So this is just an interesting tidbit. Many people, of course, use the dam. They go over the dam.
Use the road.
They're on the dam. Right, because of the road. And there has been pressure over that road for many years.
Yes.
Through school buses, twice a day, garbage trucks. Things cannot be Amazon, things cannot be FedEx. They come all the time over that dam. There is an app called FishBrain. Anybody heard of that? No. FishBrain app. Look it up. It shows Sunny Hill, Upper and Lower Lake, which we call Sunny Hill Pond, whatever, 1 and 2. It has called those two ponds Sandy Creek Pond and Sandy Creek. 1 and 2. On that app, people are encouraged to come and fish there.
So there are pictures in there right now, and I'm not getting the road.
There are, well, no, but my point is, people bring boats. They're not, I mean,
Well, and
that's these boats, and part of the reason there's that sinkhole is because there's somebody that had a car there and the tires going round. There are people that sit on the side and fish there, and that has worn it down. There is absolutely no way that people can control who comes across that road. And I was told by the feed people the other day that many people on Highway 97 are cutting through Sunny Hill to avoid the stoplight. And they come through at a high speed. A goose has been killed. We love our local Canadian geese. Children could fall off. People come through that in incredible speed. It's very dangerous. And you cannot deny that over the years, the weight of all of the traffic, which is not just Sunny Hill traffic, I believe it's been wearing it down.
But I also feel in the community, it seems to be in our minds, whether we like it or not.
Yeah.
And maybe you're right, I think that every person needs to get their own individual attorney. Maybe we try class action and people who want their own attorney, I don't know, I just want to figure out the reasonable next step.
I would like to hear, excuse me, I would like to hear a little more about that one option you talked about that DJ brought up. Having the stream go through and you can remove the dam and having a bridge built.
Sure, there is no screen. There is no screen.
Well, I do want to say it's almost 8, and I think our I'm kind of maybe, we might be wrapping up our Q&A and just having an open, I think you guys maybe want to have a general discussion, so maybe it's, yes, sir, but, we're kind of reaching the end of our Q&A. I have a question more about the removal and then this gentleman.
Yes, sir. I built a house on Burger Street. I've only been there 2 years. I'm like 500-600 yards away from the scene. I'm looking at the dam right now, and nobody's talked about, I haven't heard about the gas line, the natural gas line. Is it going across the dam? And I mean, my whole house is run off gas.
Yeah, I mean, if there was a, are you asking what the dam was removed, or are you worried about damage to the gas line, or?
Like, if they did try to fix something, how long are we gonna be without gas?
So that drawing is from 1979. I mean, I imagine the gas line is still there. But Dominion would, any construction, any repair, any removal, Dominion would work with you to make sure that gas supply is not interrupted. It could be, the gas line can be moved, it can be buried deeper. Dominion would work with you on that. I'm sure of that. As far as the more about the removal though, so again, removal does require a permit, because when you remove a dam, there are a lot of regulatory, laws and regulations that affect. So our program would have to issue a permit. We would need to make sure that the size of that culvert or bridge, but the size of that opening is large enough for us to say, this is not a dam anymore. So we do need to look at the design to see how big that opening will be. And then there could be other permitting required with the Army Corps of Engineers, and potentially with the county floodplain office. But dam removal is generally a much cheaper option. And again, once it's removed, it's not a dam anymore. So.
And the ponds aren't there.
Well, the upper pond, the lower pond would potentially stay. I mean, that's not, we're not talking about the lower pond.
So if they move the dam, the upper pond will no longer be there.
Correct. The lower pond would stay. You may even have some water may back up to where the upper pond was, but it won't be nearly as deep as it was.
Another question, there was a name on there called South Lakes, Association. That is for the lower pond.
Yes.
So
Let me show you, so the reason,
that's the lower pond that takes care of the,
so
keeps the pond.
this is the lower pond. Here.
Yeah.
You can see how the dams come down into the lower pond. That's why we consider lower Sunny Lake the part owner of this dam. Because the dam goes, it's upstream and downstream of the road.
So both, are you saying both upper pond and lower pond on the dam?
Yes. And then.
Because earlier you said in the neighbor, it
That
said.
lower association is the dam below it too. Entirely. Plus a part of the other.
Yeah, because earlier you said that the ones who own the land were the ones who own the dam. Well, whichever.
Well, I think we are at a point where I think we're done with our Q&A. One more. And
We
then
have one on.
one more, two more. And then we have a general discussion. I will be around. We'll stay here. It's at 8:30. We do need to kind of wrap at 8:30 because we have to kind of clean, get the chairs and put back, but, get these questions out of the way, and you guys are free, you can use the mic, use the room, talk to us. Yes, sir.
You brought up three options of getting rid of the dam. What are the costs?
I mean, I can't
Give me
even.
a price.
So, I mean, this dam has not had a thing done to it really since it was built. It's not gonna be cheap. I mean, 6 figures, easily 6 figures. Removal, maybe low 6 figures. Yeah, it's not cheap. It's not cheap at all.
You don't get 100,000.
Probably not.
Probably not.
But removal would probably be, again, on the lower 6 than a repair.
At the lower end, isn't
Well, yes, sir. And we inspect it too.
supposed to scoop on it?
It needs work too. But, I mean, we've got sinkholes and, we got road closed. We're focused on the upper dam now, but the lower dam is also not in great condition.
But it doesn't have a road over it. Must be safety. But it is a concern for Sunny Hill Drive at
Yes.
the back entrance.
Yes.
At which point that is DOT's responsibility. That's just what
So state road, yes.
Yeah.
State maintained road.
We got the
One more on the,
And actually, this also kind of speaks to options for moving forward. The last question we have in the chat is if the dam was lowered to an unregulated size, as you mentioned earlier, would responsibility for the road and stability of the soil underneath revert to DOT?
no, the soil under the dam, under the road will never be DOT's responsibility, but if the dam was somehow lowered, so it could potentially not be a regulated dam, then yes, DOT has to go back in and pay it. If you lower it, it is DOT's responsibility to go back and do that paving.
But it doesn't protect us in the event of a significant water. Is that right? It's lower.
I mean, well, right now, it's honestly, there's, it doesn't, it's not really protecting anyone right now either from a major, but the good thing is this is a very small watershed, so that's probably why, since it was built, it's never been overtopped, to my knowledge. Is that? What's that?
Even in 2000?
Yeah, so I mean, it's a small, it's only 115 acres, so, it would take a massive amount of really focused rainfall, but, so. I don't know, is that?
Use your shovels.
Well, I think that's we're gonna end our Q and A, you can have your general discussion. We're gonna hang out here. But we need to be leaving at 8:30, everyone.
John, I'll give you that information on this for you.
Oh, let's go to our last slide, very last slide.
Thank y'all for coming out on a Wednesday night, you know how important it is. Thank you very much. Give you information, not to sell a product, sell, but give you options. Something to think about, but there's John's information as well as Jared's information, so if you want to take a picture of it, you have it. Best thing, you got a cell phone, go ahead and take a picture of it, that way you have it, you won't have to write it down, remember if you wrote the wrong number down.
And again, we'll try to get, if we have your email address, we'll try to make sure everyone is given a link to access all the documents.
It's just, it's all.